I'm Yin Ling. I'm from Creators at Work. So welcome to another session of Asia Podcast Festival's Pod Lab. So let's just dive right into it. I think a lot of us are here already. Let's not keep each other waiting. So for just a very quick introduction about the Asia Podcast Festival. We organize this to be a celebration and recognition of podcast excellence in Asia. We want to bring together the best in industry and then provide a sandbox and community as well for emerging talents to grow as well as to experience and experiment. So it was jointly organized by Creators at Work and Mevox Live. And who are we? Creators at Work, we are a media agency which matches a curated network of freelance media professionals together with project owners or brand owners. And we very comfortably, all our network of freelancers cover the whole creative digital consumer touchpoint, all the way from conceptualization to the delivery of the end product in social media and broadcast and so. And for me, Vox Live, where they are one of the pioneers of podcasting here in Singapore. And so they help to provide consultation services if you want to ever start a podcast or are exploring to do so. And they can help provide production assistance as well for your podcast. So they've gone through all the pitfalls and all the experimentation so that you don't have to, you can save your time. So check them out as well. So the whole Asia Podcast Festival is made up of 4 different pillars, right? PodLab, which we are sitting in right now, is made up of 15 different workshops ranging from the very beginners, introduction to podcasting, what is it all about, to a more professional level. So for those who already have a podcast or are thinking of leveling up, there's something for everyone basically. Or you can choose to attend all 15 of the workshops so that you know what's ahead of you, even if you don't have a podcast right now. The awards I'll talk on a little bit more later. It all culminates in a 2-day conference on the 2nd and 3rd of December. It will coincide with a marketplace and networking session as well, where we do one-on-one matching for the participants and other registrants and brand owners within the Asia Podcast Festival. So do look out for that also. So more about the awards for those of you who don't know. The awards is very exciting because here are the eligibility if you already have a podcast, right? We're open to all Asian podcasters, including not only those in English. So that is one of the very key differentiators of the Asia Podcast Festival. We accept podcasts in all Asian languages, but most importantly, you must still also be active right now in 2021. Okay, so there are 6 different categories. I won't go into each of them one by one, but if you have any questions, you can always ping us, or you can of course go to our website asiapodcastfestival.com to find out more, and you can see all the different categories there as well. So without further ado, we are here today for the intermediate audio editing and mixing. And we have with us your trainer, Danny Cordy. So Danny, having previously started several podcast projects independently while working his day job as an auditor, not easy, Danny took the leap by starting his own podcast production back in 2019 and is now currently the assistant commissioning editor for podcasts at Mediacorp, where he oversees all the content strategy and podcast production across the entire network. So that's a huge undertaking. But it all started with him just tinkling around on his own while having a day job as well. So today would be the best. Danny is the best person to be talking about. How do you go about audio editing and mixing? I think we sent some notes as well, right? About what you have to prepare for today. I think we're mostly going to be using Audition. So I hope all of you have it open as well. Danny will go through a little bit more about that later. But yeah, without further ado, Danny, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Okay. Hello everyone. I will do a quick introduction first before I get into the workshop proper. So thank you everyone for joining. I know it's Sunday morning. I'm also yeah, it's also a weekend. So yeah, I'll try to keep this not so draggy and whatnot. But anyway, so as Xianling mentioned, my name is Danny, and yes, my history is that I didn't have like so-called very formal traditional media background. I actually studied finance back in uni, but I fell in love with podcasts and then developed that passion until it became sort of a career where I am now lah. So in that sense, what I'm going to be teaching you guys today in this editing workshop is going to be pretty much I would say a sort of like start from scratch how to get at least a decent sounding audio from your podcast. I will not be teaching you in terms of like how to properly structure or what kind of content or how to be a good host. That one maybe will be covered in other topics, but at least in terms of the technical side of things, in terms of like the editing side of things, I can give you, I would say, a big head start lah, because like even for myself, it took me like many months and many tries and failed attempts to figure out how to get decent sounding audio. I don't know if any of you have experienced editing and whatnot yourselves, but can be very tedious. It can be very confusing. So I'm here to help clear through some of that clutter lah. Right. So anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Okay. So everyone can see the share screen, yeah? Right. So this hopefully everyone would have received this Google Doc before attending this workshop. This is the list of prerequisites that you guys all must do if you want to get the most out of this workshop. All right. So because we're doing this virtually, I can't be there to assist you or whatnot, but please try to ask questions if you can. But at the very least, if you want to follow along, please have all these. So number one, of course, you know, since you guys are on Zoom, you have a laptop already. But if you're on mobile, please, you know, switch over to a laptop if you want to be more hands-on with the editing process. Number two, please use a set of earpiece or headphones. This will become more important as we go through the editing and the little bits and details that you have to look out for. And then number three, please download and install Audacity. I have included the link. You can download it here. It's available on Windows or Mac or whatever. If any of you have not yet downloaded, please, this is the time now. Very last minute already, but after this, I won't be waiting for anyone already. Please download and install now if you want to participate in following in the practice steps and whatnot in terms of the editing process. And then lastly, download all the materials that are found through the Dropbox folder here. So all the materials here will be materials that we'll be using as practice material as we go through this editing workshop. Okay, so as I mentioned, right. So as I mentioned, this workshop will be to help you through the editing process, and it's basically going to jumpstart in terms of how you approach editing. And basically, I'm going to give you like a shortcut in terms of like how you're going to get from very raw sounding audio to very good audio. But before we get into that, and before I open the Audacity application, I just want to talk a little bit about the why of post-production and editing. So the reason why we do this, and I think maybe some of you guys may be thinking, you know, you've listened to some podcasts, some of them, they sound like it's just, you know, a bunch of people talking. It doesn't sound like there's much editing going on. Why is editing so important? Why is post-production so important? Well, realistically speaking, most of the time, even if we are recording in like a studio environment, there will be the audio that you record will not be 100% clean. Maybe there'll be a background hum, maybe there'll be some buzzing through the cable or whatnot. But in most cases, whatever you record, that raw audio itself is not clean and thus will not be, I would say, presentable to the listener. So editing, in essence, what you're doing this for and who you're doing this for is for the listener. Okay, we're not just doing this because we have too much time on our hands and we don't know what to do, so we just want to play around with the editing tools and whatnot. No, we do this because we want to make our product good so that the listener will keep coming back for more. Secondly, of course, you have to consider that with podcast being an audio only platform, whatever you put out in terms of the sound will leave a very lasting impression. So for example, if you listen to like a BBC podcast or a New York Times podcast, the audio is great, the mixing is great, the host sounds great. It's very pleasing. It's very, I would say, easy to listen to. So it's like, even if you don't agree with the content, you won't have much to say in terms of the sound quality front. However, if you have a show that has terrible sounding audio quality, so be it if it sounds very tinny, it's got background noise out the wazoo, it's mixed terribly, the background music is too loud, this is very, very, very grating, okay? In terms from a listener's perspective. So because I started out as a listener, so I know what sounds good and what sounds doesn't. And a lot of times, new podcasters, they will have this problem of trying to figure out how to make their audio sound good. So this is a really important part of why you need to invest time and you need to put in effort and practice into making sure that at least you know how to make your audio sound decent, okay? So remember that if you put out audio quality that's really, really bad, no matter how good your content is, your chemistry is, whatever the topic is, I tell you, most of the time, the listener will not come back because it's just too unbearable to continue listening on a long-term basis, right? So sound quality, although it is on the grand scheme of things, may not be the most important factor in terms of a successful podcast, it is still very, very important, okay? And so last point here on just the why, before we move on to working with Audacity, is I just want to put a disclaimer here that while I did mention that editing and post-production, all these techniques and whatever skills they put into that element is important, recording properly is also as important as good editing. All right. So there's a saying in the editing space that I mean, I don't know if I can swear here, but you can't fix shit. All right. So if you record in like really, really terrible quality, and for example, there's like dogs barking, there's like construction going on in the background, you got television or radio or whatever, no amount of post-production will make it sound good. So it is important to understand at this point, before you guys have started on your podcast journeys, for those of you who haven't started yet, to understand that recording, the production and how you record, the environment you record in, is as important as the editing process itself, right? If you record poorly, most of the time, there is no way that you'll be able to edit a good product, right? There's only so much that editing can do, but what good editing can do is it can enhance and make like a well-recorded audio really pop and really sound amazing. Okay, so with that being said, let's go into the Audacity UI, all right? So, okay. Right, so let me just bring this here. Okay, so everyone can see the Audacity application here. Right, so everyone, please, if you can, open up your Audacity. So this is what you'll be seeing, right? From okay, so this is what you'll be seeing. This is your screen. So I will show you the things to look out for when you sort of like open this screen and what you need to know and the things that are important to make sure from editing and recording standpoint, right? So first thing is that's very important is your microphone input. Okay, so this is when you are recording, and if you are recording through Audacity, right? So you want to make sure that you are your microphone or your interface, whatever, is already plugged in. You plug it in already. This is where you check the microphone input. It is the correct. Okay, so for example, the mic that I'm currently using is the ATR 2100X USB. So I just click on that. But these are the inputs. Oftentimes, when you open Audacity, by default, it will be like your default laptop audio, and it just sounds. The default laptop microphone is terrible. So make sure that you click on the correct input so that you don't record using the wrong input. I made the mistake several times. Complete waste of time. Please, it's a very simple fix. Please avoid this. Yeah. So that's number one, microphone input. Number two is this thing called the project rate. So at the bottom left of your screen, you guys can see my cursor, right? So you guys can see, right? So on the project rate, so technically speaking, all you guys need to know about what the project rate is basically like the frequency in which you're going to record and playback whatever you put out in audio Audacity, right? So meaning that if certain and for podcasting and for the purpose of dialogue and for most podcast audio that you're going to be working with, it's either going to be 44.1 or 48,000, right? So you just remember these two, 44.1, 48,000. Okay, so why project rate matters is because sometimes if you bring in audio that is of a different frequency, say it's like 88,000, 96 or whatever, sometimes when you play back in Audacity and the project rate is different, it might sound a bit differently. Why? Because it's on a different wavelength. Similarly, if you record something and then you accidentally put it as say 8,000 frequency, and then you export it out and you're wondering why it sounds so weird, is because you recorded in the wrong frequency. So just note that sometimes if whatever you put into Audacity, if it sounds weird when you play back or when you record and it sounds weird, just know this can be the reason why 44,000, the project rate here. So, so as I mentioned, an easy rule of thumb is just to make sure that it's either 44.1 or 48,000. These are most of the time in podcasting. These are the only two that you're going to be working with. All right. Okay. So other than that, we'll move on to recording a track now. So in Audacity, although there are many other, I would say, editing software out there, I would say Audacity is one of the most, I don't want to say beginner friendly, or I don't want to say user friendly, because this, I mean, to me, it looks familiar, but I mean, to a newcomer, I can see how it may look a bit daunting. But I would say for Audacity, it's a little easier to get started as compared to the others. The reason why, everything is very simple to start with. If you want to record, very simply, just remember to make sure your input is correct. Then when you're ready to record, just press record. The track is automatically created and it's already recording the audio just like that. Okay, so but then just to know when you're recording a track, to be mindful of, if you already have other tracks present, to either mute, or if you want to create a new track, there's I think the shortcut is just N, new track created. Then you just solo, make sure your cursor is clicked over, and then you can just record from there. Okay, very simple, very straightforward. This is why I like Audacity. But aside from the fact that it's free, completely free. All right, so that's recording. Oh, sorry. And after you're done recording, quickly just press stop, and then you'll stop the recording. Very straightforward, right? Okay. So next, let's look at importing a file. All right. So, and then this is where we're going to start with some of the workshop materials. So from the Dropbox folder that I got you guys to, I hope you guys have downloaded already. Please go and just simply bring over and the workshop materials 1.1 and 1.2 and just import. So importing a file in Audacity is very simple. All you need to do is from your folder, right? The file, the file they want to import, just bring it over very simple. Then it'll be inside and you'll create the separate tracks for how many files that you import, right? So another way that you want to import, this is the longer way, is you can go to File, Import, Audio, then after that you go and find whatever file that you want to import. But of course, the previous way I did is just much faster. It's more intuitive. So that's how I like to do it, right? So anyway, so that's importing. Then another thing to note in terms of the UI is that, okay, so you see from my screen here that my audio is a bit longer than the screen, right? So it's a bit wider than the screen. So, or maybe not necessarily, but in most cases, your raw audio is going to be longer than whatever the default screen is going to be. So a very, very useful tool that you need to learn to use is zooming in and zooming out. Okay, so zooming in, zooming out. So zooming in, so if you want to make micro details, zooming out if you want to get an overview of whatever work that you have done already in Audacity. All right, so in the app itself, you can zoom in and zoom out through these buttons here. It'll be found on the toolbar, in the toolbar, right, with the plus and minus signs. But different shortcuts that you can use are Control 1 for zoom in or Control 3 for zoom out. Okay. But another shortcut, and this is the one that I normally use because it's just much more intuitive, is your mouse scroll. Right, so you have to press Control and then you just scroll up, scroll down to zoom in and zoom out. Okay. So at this point, I know I'm throwing in a bunch of like shortcuts and whatnot. I know that it's going to be very confusing if I keep throwing in all these different shortcuts. This is why I listed them all down in the Google Doc so that you can reference them. But basically why I want to give you all these shortcuts now is because when you're editing, this is like, for example, using my mouse to scroll, zoom in and zoom out is going to be a lot more efficient than every time I need to zoom in or zoom out, I press this or press this, right? Similar for like if I need to import a file, it's going to be much more efficient for me to just drag and drop rather than go through file import. Okay, so there's going to be a lot more coming. I just let you guys know first. All right, so that's zooming in and zooming out, expanding, right? Okay, so another feature of the UI that I want to show you guys is something called track labels. Okay, so I think in most editing software, be it video or audio, this is quite a common feature. And in Audacity, basically what you can do with track labels is at any point of your audio, you can press the track label function, and then a new track specifically just for the track label will come out, and then you can add your notes. For example, what I like to do is maybe I'm halfway through editing and then I need to go to the toilet, right? So I just put cont so that I know that at least, so that I know to continue from this point specifically in the audio lah. Or maybe I can go here and then I can highlight a portion, go to track label, and then I can say, add music or something like that or whatever, right? So that is track label, and how to use track label. The shortcut in Audacity is Control B, right? But I think how you add through the menu is, yes, edit, add label, add section, right? Control B, very simple. Okay. So this is just a additional feature lah. It's good to know. It's good to have, and it's good to put to use in your editing process as well. All right. So another very, very important feature that a lot of editing software has, video, photo, audio, is the undo feature. Confirm. Even after you've edited for millions of years already, you'll be making mistakes or you'll be making edits that you won't be happy with. So very simple to undo. So very important to know how to quickly undo whatever mistake you want to make, right? So for example, let's say I cut out this piece of audio, but then when I listen back, it's like, oh no, I realized I shouldn't have cut that part, or I accidentally cut out the wrong part. Very easily, Control Z, undo. Okay. How to do it through the toolbar is you go to edit and then you just do undo here. It'll be right at the top, Control Z. Okay. So very simple, undo, right? So then lastly, before we get into the specifics, I just want to talk through saving and exporting a file, okay? So when you start when you open a Audacity, when you open Audacity and you import in your audio and you start to work on them, this becomes like an Audacity. This is what I call an Audacity working file lah. So whatever I save here is just the file to be edited and processed in Audacity itself, right? So whatever I save, I cannot use it to as a podcast because it is not an MP3 format or whatever. So in order to to save, right? So that's the difference between saving and exporting, right? So if I want to, so if I've done with my editing already and I want to export it out, I want to upload the audio, that's when I use export. But when I want to save my progress in terms of the editing process in Audacity, this is when I want to use the save. And so saving is very easy. Go to File, Save Project, and then there. All right. So you can just save project, and then the file will appear and will look something like this lah. Okay. All right. So then after that, in the future, when you want to open again, when you want to continue any process, just reopen again. All right. So that's saving. In terms of exporting, it's a little bit different. All you have to do is just go to File, Export, and then you just choose the format you want to export in. Okay. So, for example, in most podcasts, for most podcast audio, what you'll be doing is exporting in MP3, and then the most common output quality is 192 kbps, and you can just save your file, whatever lah. All right. So you might ask, hey Danny, isn't why don't you save in other formats other than MP3? Isn't other formats, like in terms of audio, isn't, like, for example, FLAC or WAVE more higher quality than MP3? Yes, it's higher quality, but you have to be mindful that these files are huge. Yeah. So MP3, I think the rough gauge is like 1 MB per 1 minute of audio, whereas for WAVE, it's like a 1 hour file can be like gigs. So it can be gigabytes. So, and that's just for an audio file. So can you imagine this, podcast is supposed to be consumed on the go, right? And I know everyone has like a bunch of data these days, but like 1 gig for like a 1 hour podcast is, I think it's a bit too much already, right? So remember, just export in audio. Okay, so with that being said, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So this is just sort of like getting familiar with the UI, okay? Just the basics, just an overview of what the Audacity tool looks like and some of the functions and various tools that you can use, okay? At this point, is anyone lost? Anyone confused? Anyone got any questions yet? Because from this point onwards, things are just going to get a lot more complicated from here on out. So if you have any questions, or if you still for some reason don't know how to open Audacity yet, please raise your questions now. Otherwise, okay.
Everything looks good so far. Yeah, but along the way, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, and then we'll address it during the Q&A sessions. Oh wait, Elizabeth has just put in a question. What's the difference between stereo and mono recording channel?
Okay. Yeah. Well, how do I put this? So, okay, how do I explain this? Okay, so you see this track here, right? And you see there's like two, for example, it seems like there's two mini tracks inside this one big track, right? So these are your channels, right? And a mono track is basically just a single channel, whereas stereo is combined, it's got two channels. Basically, I don't know exactly technically what the difference is, but I just know that stereo is a lot more fuller sounding than mono. And because of that, stereo audio tends to have contain more data, and is it'll be more data intensive. So if you save out a file in stereo, it will be higher megabytes than like if you just save it out in mono, right? So in Audacity, the only thing that you need to be concerned about in terms of stereo versus mono is that if you have a stereo track, right? So okay, let me just make it easier to show this. Okay, so for example, I have a stereo track here, right? And I want to maybe put another, I want to add something else here. I can't add a mono track onto a stereo track, right? It doesn't let me, okay? Because it's not the same sort of like type of file lah, right? Whereas if I want to bring it up and I want to put it on, and I want to put it on the same track, I need to make it the same either stereo or mono, right? So this is also good to know because sometimes when you're recording through various audio interfaces or whatnot, what you might get is situations whereby how they record is like one track. For example, the top one will be your host, and then the bottom one will be the guest, right? And then, but then when you import it into, but in Audacity, how it will first be recorded is they'll be on a single track. So how to split them up and how to make them both stereo is very, very simple. So for example, let me see, okay. So for example, I just recorded through Audacity, I just recorded like my interview with my guest, right? And then how it will record in Audacity for two inputs is that you will open up one track like this in a stereo file, in a stereo form, but then the top part will be, for example, the one input, the bottom part will be the next input. So obviously I can't edit like this, right? Because if it's all on the same track, every edit I make will be affecting both tracks. And if both tracks are from different people, I cannot make the edit that way. So what I can do instead to split them up so that I can edit more cleanly is first go to the track here, go to split stereo to mono, right? Then both are now mono, right? But then you might ask, oh, but if I want to make it stereo, then how? So very easy. What I can do, I can just duplicate and I can just make it a stereo. Okay. So the duplicate function, the duplicate function, the shortcut is Control D. Otherwise, I believe it is, where is it? Yeah, edit, duplicate. Okay. Edit, duplicate, and then you make stereo. Okay. 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 I hope that answers that question.
Do you want to, there is another, I guess it's a discussion coming in from Jeremiah asking about the mono stereo as well. Let me convert that into a question. I think yesterday when they were trying things out during the escape session, there was this problem where mono stereo recording, even though it was mono, they changed it into stereo. I think coming out as mono track, even though there were two inputs. There were two inputs, but it was still coming out as a mono track.
I don't mind sharing the experience, then maybe can assist. So Danny, hi, Jeremiah here. Yesterday, a few of us were actually using the Zoom P4 audio recorder, right? There were two dynamic mic inputs into channel 1, channel 2, into the Zoom P4. And then from the Zoom P4, we output into an audio jack, and then a converter into a USB into a Apple laptop lah. So by right, because the Zoom P4 is acting as a audio interface, when we put it into I believe it was either Audacity or Logic Pro or something, the Audacity only saw it as a mono track with two audio tracks lah. That means mic 1 and mic 2. But by right, it should be audio 1, audio 2, where mic 1 is a track by itself and mic 2 is a track by itself. But we couldn't figure out why they kept just putting mic 1 and mic 2 into one audio track and layer.
Yeah, I think that's maybe it's because of the interface itself, the Zoom P4. Most of the time, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to record separately. So in that instance, right, what I would do is actually record on the Zoom P4, and then after that, I will move the file separately over to to my editing tool or whatnot. So because for example, what I use is called the portable recorder I use is a Zoom H6, right? So that one has 4 XLR inputs, right? So how the Zoom H6 works, if I have all 4 inputs recording at the same time, is that it will create 4 separate tracks, 4 separate mono tracks, which I can upload. And so all these tracks will be from all the 4 separate. So it may just be a feature of the Zoom P4, whereby instead of like making it separate, they combine it. And it may be because you are recording directly to your computer. That's why they do this. Yeah, because like I think if I'm not wrong, in Audacity, when you're recording, maximum that you I haven't really tested this out in Audacity because most of the time I only need 2 inputs, but I'm not sure if we can handle more than 2 at the same time. So maybe if you're doing more than 2, then they will combine in that instance. So that may be the reason why lah.
Okay, cool. So in a sense, like however many inputs, the output will always be just a guide track lah. And then best is still to record natively on Zoom itself lah, right?
If possible, yes, do that. Yes.
Coolios, thank you.
Yes. Okay. All right. So now let's get our hands dirty and to talk about the first step of the audio editing process. Okay. So everything up to now is just the overview. Now I'm going to teach you step by step how to clean up your shitty sounding audio. Okay. Very first step is called noise reduction. All right. So remember this. This will be this will give you a lot of issues, I guarantee you. So please please listen closely and please follow in terms of the steps to see how to do this properly. All right. So what exactly is noise reduction? So I mentioned earlier on at the start of this workshop that most of the time raw audio is not clean, right? It will have background noise, it will have hums, it will have the buzzing or whatever. So what noise reduction does, as the name implies, is to remove all that background noise, right? So essentially, the goal when we are going through this step in the audio editing process is we want to remove as much background noise as possible while keeping the raw voice relatively the same. Now, the second part of this equation, keeping the raw voice relatively the same, is the trickiest part of this process, because noise reduction, if applied wrongly, can really affect the quality of your voice, and you don't want to do that because all you want to be removing is just the background noise, right? All the crap that no one wants to listen to, right? But you want to retain as much quality of the voice in terms of like the fullness, the depth, the bass, all the parts of the raw voice. You want to keep it the same, but you just want to remove the background noise. This is why it's very important to learn how to do this properly. Can be quite tricky to use. I just let you guys know first. Right, so in Audacity, the way to access the noise reduction function is first you must highlight a portion that you want to apply the effect to. So for example, I highlight just this small part of the track here. And then I'll go to effects, and then here, noise reduction. Okay. So this shortcut here, Shift N, this one is my own personal shortcut. So I don't think it'll be there in your Audacity. I'll show you later how to add your own shortcuts. But just know for now, this is where you can find the noise reduction function, right? So when you open noise reduction itself is a 2-step process. The first step is they do what is called a gathering of the noise profile. And then the second step is they use the noise profile to apply it across the whole track so that it can remove that noise. So I'll explain in detail what these two do. So first, getting the noise profile. So what it does at this stage is the program will read the sort of like the frequency of whatever that you've highlighted. So for example, this section, you'll read the noise profile. So for example, for this part, right, I just solo here, it sounds like this.
So scared about this thing. I don't touch it. Okay.
So you can hear, right? There's like voice, there's like background noise. So if I use noise reduction, if I use the noise profile, it will sort of like gather this information, what this sound sounds like. And then if I apply it again, here in step 2, all you just need to do is press OK to apply. So step 2, after you get a noise profile, then you will use whatever information that is gathered, the frequency, and then basically through step 2, you're telling Audacity, okay, apply this. I want this sound removed across this entire track. So for example, if I do that, and then, okay, so after that's done, then I can play back.
Wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter.
So you can see the same portion here. Good to go. Yeah. It'll be a lot less quiet than what it was before. But as well, if you would notice, so if you notice, right, so for example, if I do undo, right, so this is before it was noise reduced, right? Then this is after. So this is what it sounds like before.
Wake up at the
So I'll make it a bit louder because this one is not properly mixed yet.
Wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter
What time?
like what time.
Okay, so that's before, right? So this is after. Oh, goodness. And then this is after.
Wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter
What time?
like what time.
Yeah.
Yeah, around.
So can you guys hear the difference there in terms of the audio quality? So where before the before version, there's a lot more depth and a lot more body in terms of how the audio sounded, right? There's a lot more warmth. After you remove it, it sounds a bit more tinny. It sounds like it's missing a bit of weight, a bit of body. That's because the noise reduction process was done wrongly. And why was it done wrongly? Because I didn't use the sort of the noise profile tool on the correct stretch of audio. Okay, so how you want to properly do noise reduction, right, is that for the track that you want to apply noise reduction to, first thing, you want to jack up the gain to about 25, 30. Then you want to highlight and find a piece of quiet sounding, a piece of empty audio, what looks like empty audio, but actually it's just background noise, right? And then you want to play back first. So, okay, so you can hear, right? So this, although it looks like it's empty, it's not empty because there's the breath sound. So I can't use this because I don't want to apply this across the entire track, right? Otherwise, every time there's a breath or anything that sounds like a breath, it will be removed, so it won't sound good, right? So I need to find another place where there's empty, where it's just background noise. Okay, so this is much better. Again, I can't use that because there's that little click that comes in between the audio. Now this I can use. So essentially, the first stage of the noise reduction process, what you want to do is identify empty uniform stretches of audio. So keep that in mind, empty uniform stretches of audio, okay? So I just play it again. This is what it should sound like, right? Empty, there's no breath, there's no click, there's no nothing behind. It's just that background hum or whatever that is going to be all throughout your audio that you can just simply remove through the noise reduction process, right? So for example, for this one, it will sound like that, but other times it may sound like this. You guys see that? So you can hear that buzzing, right? So the buzzing is because the XLR cable is a little bit dirty or a little bit old. That's why there's that buzzing sound. But again, that's the kind of audio that you don't want in your final output. That's the kind of audio that you can apply noise reduction to, right? So once you have identified this empty uniform stretch of audio, okay, what you're gonna do, you highlight it, you go to your noise reduction, click noise profile, and then after that, you double click or you select the entire track, right? A simple way to select the entire track is to just double click, and then you go to noise reduction, And then after that, you press OK to apply the noise reduction tool across the entire track. Okay. So before I do that, I'll just explain a little bit about what these things mean here. Okay. So the noise reduction itself is basically by how much or by what volume you want to reduce the background noise, or you want to apply the noise reduction effect. So if I go to -30, then or to 10 or to 30 or 40, then it will use whatever that I've gotten through the noise profile. So if that appears across any other portion elsewhere along the track, then it will minus that, it will reduce that by 40 decibels, 50 decibels, or however much you want to put here. Sensitivity and the frequency bands is just basically how finely you want to apply the noise reduction tool. Okay. So, but for the most part, I think you can just get by with these settings. So if you want to take it down, if you want to remember or whatnot, just remember these settings. It's also in the Google Docs. Yeah, right. So you can just use these settings. It works most of the time for me, so I think it should be fine for you as well. Okay. So you will apply this. And then after that's applied, then your audio will be cleaner than what it was before.
Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Hey Mama podcast.
So this is...
Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Hey Mama podcast with me, your host, Sophie Gollifer.
So this is after.
Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Hey Mama podcast with
before.
me, your host, Sophie Gollifer. Now, off the bat, I just want to mention that it's been so wonderful being...
Okay. So again, oh goodness, I have to apply again. Okay. Okay. Right. So noise reduction. So just to recap again, it's a two-step process. Your first step is to identify empty stretches of audio, right? Get the noise profile. Step 2, highlight the entire track, apply it to the entire track. So if I go back to that same place where I got the empty stretch of audio from, I listen back, it's a lot more quiet than before, right? I can't hear it anymore because I already applied the noise reduction effect. So, but here's sort of like a pro tip, and what I like to do to make sure that my audio is as clean as possible is I like to redo the entire process again, meaning that I will go to that same, I'll identify that same stretch, I'll get the noise profile, and then I'll apply again. So in this way, I'll make sure then whatever residue of background noise there is left in the entire track, most of it will be completely removed, or that when it's played back at like a regular volume, it can be barely heard at all. Okay, so you might be wondering, why don't you just why don't you just use a higher noise reduction or more sensitivity right off the bat, so that you don't have to repeat the process twice? Well, the reason why I do it two times is because I want to make it, I want to do it in a more gradual process, right? Because remember how I mentioned that noise reduction is very tricky to use and can be very easy to mess up the quality of your audio. Well, that's what can happen if you apply too heavy of a noise reduction right off the bat, right? So for example, if I did it like 30 right off the bat, then maybe a lot more will be removed other than just, or maybe it will be a much cruder application of the tool rather than the one I just did, right? So if you want to make it more cleaner, you apply this in a more gradual way. You do go through, repeat the process twice. Okay, so I've already done on the, okay, so I've already done the first on the track here, workshop materials 1.1, the top track. So now let's go through a quick practice session. Basically what we'll be doing here is that we'll be applying what we have learned or what I've just gone through in terms of noise reduction, and you'll be applying to the bottom track workshop materials 1.2. Okay, so just to reiterate, the steps are to you increase the gain on the track through here, all right? Increase the gain, you play it back, and then you identify empty stretches of uniform audio, right? You want empty, you want it to be no background, you want it to be no dialogue, you don't want there to be any clicks, any chair movements, anything too obtrusive. All you want is an empty stretch of uniform audio, just background noise, right? Once you've identified that. So for example, I think around 7:48, between 7:48 and 7:49, this is a very good part here. So something like that. Wait. Okay. Then I'll just go to noise profile, and then I'll just apply noise reduction again. Okay, at this stage, does anyone have any issues? Anyone have any questions? Is anyone completely lost? Anyone doesn't know what is going on? Right? So after you've applied the noise reduction, then your audio should come out sounding
I
really
know,
nice.
I told
and
myself that
clean.
also when they were younger, but yeah.
But then you're like, I just want to sleep then, brother.
Yeah.
Sleep is so awesome.
So the voice is still retained, but the background noise is gone.
I know you have children for sure.
Yes.
The balance between those things.
Okay, so I have 2 kids, 2 girls.
Okay. So I'll give you guys another couple of minutes or so. Again, if you have any questions, have any issues, please feel free to ask, yeah?
Hey Danny, Kayan here. I think Jeremiah also mentioned, could you give the exact timestamp that you did a noise reduction? Because I'm hearing a lot of like, let's say the interviewee, even on the interviewee side, you can hear the interviewer's voice.
Yep. So the part I use is around here between 7:48 and 7:49.
So it's only 1 second that you're using, is it?
Yeah, for the noise profile, you only need to gather just a very short, it doesn't have to be very long. It can be very, very short, just as long as it's clean and, it's empty and uniform. This is what you're looking for. You don't have to be like 5 seconds or whatever. Even if it's like half a second, that's fine. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be just from this part of the track. It could be from other places as well, but main thing you have to keep in mind is that there's no breath sounds, there's no other dialogue, it's just the background noise.
Okay, thank you. Can I verify something with you very quickly as well? If let's say we do have a like sound, for example, it's the mic or something lah, but it's very, very consistent, right? Can we just highlight the sound under the noise reduction? And does it mean that it will so-called take that sound out lah?
When you do that,
if you understand what I'm trying to say, like
is that a mouth sound or is that like a finger snap?
Oh, you mean like right now?
No, just not the sound you made.
It's my I'm
clicking it's your tongue, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That one is actually more, I would say it's more advanced in terms of the treatment. Because what I'm telling you now, everything here is everything
noise, right?
that I can do through Audacity. For that kind of thing, you would need to get external software and it's a feature that the feature that you're looking for to remove these specifically these kind of clicks is called a D-click.
A what? Oh, sorry, a D-click.
A D-click, yes.
Okay. So this noise reduction feature doesn't actually do it lah.
I mean, it can, but I wouldn't say it does it as well as the D-click. And again, it might affect how the rest of your audio sounds. Because if like the clicking is part of like your speech or how you talk, then it's definitely going to be affecting the rest of your audio as well.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Danny, quick question.
Yes.
So let's say for noise reduction, is there an ideal amount of seconds to use? Because you last mentioned 5 seconds is good enough.
Oh no, there's no ideal amount. As long as it's clean and uniform, that's all you're looking for.
Got it.
So it can be as short as I think there's a limit to how short it can be lah. Yeah, see, this is too short, but something like this is still too short. Okay, yeah. So as long as it's able to be you can use the noise profile on it, that's enough already, honestly. Doesn't need to be super long or whatnot.
Got it. So if let's say you see for this clip that you kind of used, if we use a longer stretch of ambient sound or white noise, essentially the noise reduction will kind of like take out more based off the data and information given lah. So is it better to use a longer stretch of dead air, to use the noise reduction?
Well, I mean, not necessarily, right? So like, for example, if your dead air is completely uniform, it's just a buzz sound, be it if it's like 5 seconds or 2 minutes long, it's still the same. It's still like most of it is like the same, right? It's going to be 99% the same. So it's not going to make any difference, you see. That's why I don't see a need to go more than, to go longer or whatnot. And also if you go longer, the most likely what's going to happen is you're going to be picking up more sounds other than just the dead air. So you run the risk of like those additional sounds affecting the quality of your noise reduction.
But can I also jump in very quickly
Thanks, Danny.
and say perhaps one workaround is, for instance, before we record, then perhaps we have a few seconds of silence before you start. Would that be a good working habit?
Yeah. This is normally good practice lah. Normally it's like a few seconds before, few seconds after. That's how people do it to capture the background noise so that we can use it for noise reduction. But I think most of the time, I don't know. I mean, like, if you spend enough time recording, there's going to be a bunch of dead air. It's like I haven't gone through any recordings where people are talking like non-stop straight for like 45 minutes or whatnot. Most of the time there'll be ums and ahs and people messing up and having to restart again. So
yeah, Kayan actually talk a lot.
It takes one to know one, sweetie. But
bestie.
Ayo. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for answering the question, Danny.
Yes, no worries. Okay, is everyone done with their noise reduction? Good. You play back your audio already. Sounds nice and clean. Okay. Okay, great. So noise reduction, yeah.
Sorry, Danny.
Yeah.
Sorry. Before we move on, so if let's say, right, I do noise reduction and I suddenly sound very, very robotic, is it because like
you done it wrongly?
Yeah, because I took some of my speaking shot, right, or something like that.
It's most likely that, or whatever you did in your noise profile, it also captured something. It captured too much, or you applied the noise reduction effect. Sorry, the dB is too much.
Got it.
In the
Thanks,
the noise reduction too much. Yep. Okay, great. So that's noise reduction, step 1. So now that you have clean audio already, this is what the next step that I like to do is this thing called compression. So Other editors and other engineers might have different ways of doing it. This is just how I like to do it. I think it works fine for me. I think it should work fine for most dialogue podcasts out there as well. All right, so I want to first explain what compression does, and then we're going to spend a few minutes going to set up the compression tool that we're going to be using for Audacity. Okay, so basically what compression does is it performs this sort of like sandwiching effect lah, or in a sense of like it makes your audio levels more even. Okay, so for example, in a regular conversation that I might be having with like my best friend, right? So maybe we're talking about like a funny story. So maybe when I'm retelling certain parts of the story, I'll be like very quiet. I'll be like just speaking at a regular tone. But once I deliver the punchline, we'll be laughing. It'll be ha 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 ha. Then when it comes on, when it appears in a waveform, it will look something like this, right? Regular sounding and then suddenly big sounding. Okay. So what compression does essentially is to balance it out, and so as to make the levels much more equal in that sense lah. So from a listener standpoint, it won't be very disrupting in terms of like very drastic changes in terms of the dynamics of how we speak. Okay, so what you will notice, so for example, I'll just play back here, this section.
You wrote the piece that you mentioned, titled, "I wanted to be a perfect work-at-home mom. It nearly killed me." That to me is it's such an eye-catching.
Okay, so you can see the fun parts are a bit soft, but then once the once the lady goes, wow, it's very loud, right? So most of the time in audio or in podcasting, I think it's better if you do something like this.
You wrote the piece that you mentioned, titled, "I wanted to be a perfect work-at-home mom. It nearly killed me." That to me is it's such an eye-catching.
So can you see the big difference? The big difference is now is that all throughout it's much more it's much more level, much more uniform. It's easier on the ears to listen to as well because everything is a lot more clearer. And this is the reason why I emphasize so much on the noise reduction part, is because compression, essentially what it does is it brings the lower parts up, and then it sort of reduces the higher parts of the wavelength, the waveform lah. So for example, with the compression here, so the quieter portions are increased, right? They're stretched, they're elongated, they're made louder, but then the louder parts are made sort of like softer. Or you can even tweak it to make it louder, like if you want to, right? So that's the reason why I emphasize so much on the noise reduction, because if you don't apply noise reduction, if you bring up those smaller, those quieter portions, you're going to be bringing up the background noise as well, right? And because like your speech is not exactly uniform, people speak in different dynamics and stuff like that. If you don't apply your noise reduction before you apply your compression, you're going to be hearing like just a huge mess of like the variations in background noise as you go throughout the entire track. That is if you apply compression lah. Okay, so that is the sort of like a rough overview of what compression does. I'm going to show you now how to apply the compression. Okay, so from the Skip workshop materials folder, right? Please open that folder, the one that I asked you, the Dropbox folder that I asked you guys to download. So from that folder, please extract this file called Dynamic Compressor for Audacity 1.2.6. Okay, so what this is an external plugin that can be used in Audacity. The reason I'm using this is because this is by far the best compressor tool for Audacity that I have used. Audacity itself has built-in compressor tools, but they are completely shit. I've tried them; they are terrible. They don't work as well. The one that I'm going to show you guys how to use is by far the best. Just use this one. Okay. All right. So once you have extracted that folder already, then you follow the steps in the Google Doc to how to install the compressor plugin to Audacity. Okay, so you basically, it's very simple. All you have to do is just, you have to move the file compress.ny into Audacity's plugin folder. And how you find Audacity's plugin folder is through your wherever you install your Audacity, program files, Audacity, and there'll be a folder called plugin. All you want to do is just copy and paste your this file right here, compress.ny, into that folder. Okay. So I'll just bring it up here so that everyone can see. Okay. So if I'm not wrong, let me see.
So only compress.ny, right?
Yes,
not the entire.
only that file. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
it should be this one. Yes. Okay. Very tiny file, big difference. Yeah. So just copy and paste into this plugin folder in your Audacity. Okay. So has everyone done that already? Okay. So once everyone has done that, what you need to do now is to go to Effect, Add or Remove Plugin, and then find Compress and Dynamics, and make sure that it is enabled. Okay. So most likely you just need to click and then press Enable or Disable. So for example, I think for new ones, it'll come out looking like this. New, and then you just have to press Enable. Okay.
So if on the manage plugins, right, it shows up as compress instead of compress and dynamics, that's okay, right?
It should be compress and dynamics. Look through the list to see if it's there. Otherwise, or if beside it, it says new, then most likely that's the one. Then just click enable.
It says new.
Yeah. So that should be the one.
Okay.
Or in the path, if it says here compress.ny, then that's the one. Then just click enable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Danny.
Yes. Hello.
Ding Xuan here. Yeah, can I just check for Mac, right? How do I locate the place where I can find the plugins, like where I can, add in the plugins for Mac?
Yeah. So I'm not sure for Mac, but it should be where you install your Audacity folder.
Okay,
So
because I only have like a DMG. Is it that one? Like
So for example, I know for Windows, I install it in my program files, then in my Audacity, it'll be here, right? The plugins. Is there a similar thing for Mac where you install
I don't see something like that for Mac. Yeah.
Oh wait, do you see there's an instruction here. Hold on. Library application support Audacity plugins.
Because when I open my applications, right, they only show me the app itself, which is Audacity. Then when I try to open Audacity, right, it just directs me to the file, to the software itself, lah. So I don't see like files where I can add stuff.
So for Mac, when you install files, do they create like a program file, like where all the your uninstall or your whatever data is like a separate folder other than just the application itself?
I don't think so.
Huh? It can't be, right? Because like the software can't just work on like the icon itself, ma.
Okay. Actually, I think it's a common problem because I see in Syria also like having a similar issue on the chat. Yeah.
Is anyone else here using Mac that is able to find the plugin folder? Or everyone that is using Mac cannot find?
Hi, yes, I think I kind of figure it out. So like in applications, if like you right click Audacity, you'll be able to see like show package contents. Then in the contents, there's like a plugins folder. So I just like copy and pasted it in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Okay, found it already. Thank you, Elizabeth.
No problem.
Thank you. Elizabeth, so I'm sorry to say, but I don't use other applications, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But I mean, a compressor is a quite common feature in most programs. So I think most other editing software should have as well. It's just that this is the one I use. And I don't like the default one because it looks quite bad. It looks very weird and it's very, yeah. Yeah, I don't understand this at all. Yeah. Okay. Is everyone done? Has everyone added the compress plugin already? Click enable already?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So after it's enabled, just to check if it's ready to be used, you should be able to go to effect. Then your compress the new compress tool should be somewhere. So it should be like compress dynamics. Okay, it should say compress dynamics. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys how to use the compressor tool and what it looks like. So just bear with me. There's quite a lot to break down. So just bear with me. Okay, so first thing you want to do before you apply the effects is you want to double click or highlight the portion that you want to apply the effect to. So for example, the top track here, I just want to apply this effect, right? So I apply the compressor. So I go to compress dynamics, right? And then what comes out is this little box here. And I'll just quickly go through what each of these are and what each of these controls do. So compress ratio is basically how much compression of the compression effect that you want to apply, i.e. how much do you want to squish the audio together by raising the soft parts and lowering the loud parts. So that means higher values, right? So for example, if my compress goes all the way up to the max, that means all parts of the audio will be roughly level. Okay, that means I will lose all the dynamics in terms of like the speaking and whatnot. Okay, and then lower, of course, is the compression effect. The squishing effect is not as severe. I will retain a lot of like the dynamics in the voice, but then it is not as evened out. Okay, in terms of the levels. Right. So then hardness, the next portion here, compression hardness, is how aggressively you want the tool to apply the compression effect. So you increase this value when even after you apply the compressor, you still realize that, oh, the soft parts are still very soft, or when the compressor, or when it is too, for example, when after you've applied the compression effect, you realize that, oh, the loud parts, it's just way too loud, then you lower the compression hardness. Okay. So the floor is the cutoff point of the compression effect. which means that anything below the specified amount will not be raised. So remember how I said that compressed applies this squishing effect where it raises the quiet parts and it brings down the loud parts. So the floor basically is a signal to this program that says that anything below this decibel level, don't raise it up at all, because I don't want it to be I don't want it to be brought up lah. So essentially what this is useful for is to so that you do not bring up your background noise as well. And this is another reason why you apply your noise reduction, is to make sure that everything that is not your voice or anything that you want to retain, it is lower than this floor, so that it will not be brought up during the compression process. Okay. So then after that, the noise gate fall off. This is, it will gradually, so what this does is it gradually cuts out any noise below the floor. And then the maximum amplitude is, this is limits to set in terms of like how high or the maximum cap that you want the audio to hit. Okay. Then I have no idea what this perceptual model thing is. I've never used it. I've never tried it. I tried it before. Okay. So very simply, as a start, you guys can follow the values that I have placed here. So this is what I regularly use for my podcasts, like regular conversation style dialogues. I found this to be quite effective in most cases. So you guys can just apply the same values, and you can just use it over workshop materials 1.1. And then once you've keyed in already, just click OK, and then you let the compressor run. And then you can see the big difference. See, everything becomes much more unified, but at the same time, when you zoom in, there is still some semblance of dynamics in there, right? So of course, if I went to change this up to like, oh, it goes more than one. Wow. Okay. So if I went to 1 and I applied it, then everything is almost the same. Yeah, pretty much it's roughly the same already. All right. So if I play back,
everything. It's a huge issue, I think, for many parents to deal with, and it can be especially challenging if you've never had to work from home.
Yeah. So if you notice, this is what radio does is they make it super compressed, just so that everything becomes a lot more legible and listenable. And this is the effect that you get when everything sounds very compressed, is sort of like it sounds very, very close and much more closer to radio. So of course with podcast is not exactly radio, so you don't exactly ever want it to go that far. But I would say about 875 is about right for me. Yeah. Of course, please for your own podcast, please tweak it as to your own preferences, or after you've experimented with a bit to see how effective or ineffective these settings work. These settings are only a baseline for how I use it. So of course, in your case, it might be different. You can experiment with different settings. Okay, so let's just go through a bit of practice. Similarly, what we're going to do is we're going to be applying the compressor to this track here, workshop materials 1.2. And then very similarly, you're just going to go to effects, compress, and just click OK lah. So hopefully it won't take too long. But you can use this time to play a bit with the compress ratio or the compress hardness or whatever to see how much of a difference it makes. Okay. But essentially, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. After a couple of minutes, everyone should have both of their tracks, workshop materials 1.1 and 1.2, noise reduced already and also compressed already. Okay. Right. And also at this point, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. Is everyone good? Everyone okay? Good to go? Any issues?
Actually, I do have one question. Because like after doing the noise reduction and then doing the compression dynamics, if I played the audio, do you think you might be able to hear it? I don't think so, right? But the audio has kind of like a very weird muffled quality to it. So I'm not very sure like why that's happening. It sounds very robotic lah. Can I try playing the audio to see if you can actually hear it or?
Sure.
Wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter
What time?
like what time.
Yeah.
Around the same time and you check your brain.
Every single day. Yeah. So gonna suffer through it.
I can't really tell because it's through Zoom. So
Right?
it's like Zoom is already a bit muffled.
That's why I was but I don't know if you can hear the like slightly like for example like before the compression when the presenter says yeah, it's a very smooth like yeah.
Okay,
But,
so which part of the track is that? Like the
so give me a
timestamp?
moment. I believe it is at about 10 seconds in now. Is it 10 seconds or 10 minutes? I'm sorry.
10
It's
seconds.
10.0.
Okay, so about here,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. 10.0. That's right.
Okay, so this is how it should sound.
Ayo.
Every
After the
single
second
day.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So gonna suffer through it. But I would like to get a really good routine in. Because my kids currently, one's getting up whenever she wants and the other one's getting up about 7. So if I get up at 5, I can get some stuff done.
I know. I told myself.
So for example, like when she says 5, it's like 5 and it's very smooth. But for mine, like after it compresses, it goes like, I mean, not really like that, but I cannot explain it. It's almost like very robotic.
This is after you've applied the compressor, is it?
Yes, the plugin that you mentioned, the
Right. And
compressed
before that,
dynamics.
before that, did it sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, it sounded more natural lah.
Okay. Just
So I
make
kind of
sure-
understand over Zoom is a bit difficult to
Yeah.
pinpoint.
So the values are the same, yeah.
Yes, exactly the same. Yeah. But to be honest, like because sometimes I do voiceover work as well. Even when I compress, sometimes I don't compress that much because I have noticed that sometimes when I compress too much, I do hear this very weird like buzzing as well. So I don't know if it's because of my program, like because of my computer, or is it
No, I think most likely is your noise reduction maybe is not as clean, which is why the compressor is doing weird things to your audio. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but
Thanks,
it's
I'll
okay. It's
look
okay.
into it. Yeah. Thank you.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I don't expect you guys to be perfect editors after this. Definitely not. But this is good in terms of practice and so on. So of course, with more experience and more time, you'll get better, you get more familiar, and then you'll be better able to look out for these problems and issues. All right. So okay. Yes. So if everyone is okay, I think we can move on to the next step. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is called equalization. And to be honest, even for me, I'm still a little bit confused as to specifically, how to really make the best out of equalization. But what I can say is that for the purposes of podcast editing, thankfully, it is not really super 100% important. And I would say this that, actually for most podcasts out there, if it's just conversational interview, for example, I don't think you even need to look at equalization, or at the most equalization is more of like just refining and just adding that little bit of extra polish to the audio. So it's like, in most cases, it is not that perceptible from the audience or listener perspective. But I will just give you a brief run through of what it does and how to apply it. Okay, so similarly to compress, if you want to apply it to a specific section, say, let's see here. So let's say this portion here.
Been a great source of stress for many parents. I know in my life, a lot of my friends.
Okay. So maybe if I just want to apply to there, I can just go to effect. Then the function, the tool is over here. It's called filter curve EQ. Okay. So then you click on it, and then it brings up this XY chart looking thing. Yeah, so for those of you who sucked at maths, please don't get traumatized by this. Yeah, so it brings up this thing. On the vertical axis, it's the decibel or the volume, and on the horizontal axis, it is the frequency. Okay, so at a very, very simple level, what frequencies are like different wavelengths that sound waves. Well, yeah, I don't know how to explain what frequencies are, but just know that at different frequencies is just like different different sort of like parts of your audio. Okay, so for example, the higher parts, the higher frequencies are, for example, the higher pitch sounds, or the higher the sounds that are the higher part of the pitch range, whereas the lower frequency sounds are more of like sounds that are very deep, very low pitch. And then actually for most people, right, you won't be able to listen past the parts past like 10,000 or like below 20. Most of them won't even be able to hear. The bulk of where frequencies matter in terms of dialogue editing is like in between, I would say 100 to about maybe like 4,000, around there. So to explain just a little bit, hundreds, anything in the low values will be like your the sort of like the bassier parts of your dialogue, to background noise. All of these will be captured by the lower frequencies, whereas the higher frequencies are stuff like your S's, your maybe your high T's, your clicks. Some of these will be captured by there as well. So essentially what you do with the equalization, right, is that if you are a sort of, how to say, very, very minute and very, very detailed in terms of how you want to affect your audio, this is how you do it. Where what equalization allows you to do is to specifically target at specific points of your audio how much lower, or sorry, how much softer or how much louder you want it to be. So for example, if my S's are too hard, right, what I can do is I can just bring it down a little bit here, just so that my S's aren't as hard. Or maybe my basses are not loud enough. What I can do is I can go to the lower frequencies and I can bring it up a little bit. So that is essentially a rough idea of what equalization does. However, I would say that for beginners and even for a lot of editors, this is very, very, I would consider equalization to be quite advanced and takes quite a lot of practice and understanding. So I don't expect you guys to fully utilize this or to be able to learn this within like this workshop. But what I like to do, and just some simple tricks that you can do with equalization, is that in Audacity, right, once you open the filter curve EQ function, there's this manage button here that you can press. Then after that, you can go to factory presets, and there's this thing called low roll off for speech. And ta-da, there's a preset function for you that helps you make your dialogue a little bit better, just to give a little bit more polish. So then you just apply.
Been a great source of stress for many parents. I know in my life, a lot of my friends.
And then this is the before.
Been a great source of stress for many parents. I know in my life, a lot of my friends.
So I don't know if you guys can hear, it's just a tiny little bit cleaner on the low end, because like that's what the EQ did, right? Sorry, let me just bring up the EQ again, because the EQ helped to clean up all the lower parts by bringing it down. Okay, so, but like I said, it is very, very minuscule in terms of the additional in terms of making the audio cleaner or sound better, it is very, very minuscule in terms of the difference. It can be very difficult to even make out from a listener standpoint as well, right? So, but then I just want to show you that this is something that you can simply, just a quick little simple hack that you can simply add through Audacity. So other features that you can add through Audacity, so is that there are ways to sort of like manipulate through the equalization tool. There are ways to manipulate your dialogue such that you can apply certain very, very, very specific effects to it. So for example, right, if you are recording like an audio drama, so like, for example, if you're recording, maybe you're recording a segment where you want to pretend like you're doing a phone call, right? So you can go to EQ, factory presets, and then you can just apply the telephone effect, right? And then you apply that, and then
been a great source of stress for many parents. I know in my life, a lot of my friends.
Yeah, very simple.
Been a great,
very easy to apply and very simple as well. Okay. Okay, so that's the equalization. So just to recap, to apply, just highlight your track or whatever you want to apply the EQ to. Go to filter curve EQ, go to manage factory presets, low roll off for speech, click OK, and then apply. Done. Okay, very simple. Okay. Right, so then let's just go to the practice and apply. So for you guys, just apply the EQ to track workshop materials 1.2. Okay, so by the end of this practice section, before I move on, by this stage, you got both of your tracks should be noise reduced, should be compressed, and it should have a layer of EQ, just a low roll of speech. All right. Okay. Anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, Kenna, should be quite fast. Is everyone okay? Any issues so far? All good? All good?
To be very, very honest, my audio just sounds like a very bad like radio station. Like you know how like when you listen to radio and then the connection isn't good, and then everything just sounds super muffled. So especially after applying the filter curve EQ, it just sounds like that right now.
Oh goodness, you applied the low roll off, right?
Yes, yes.
And then before you applied the effect, this is after the compressor lah.
That's right.
Oh goodness. Okay. I think you might need to look through. I mean, after this workshop, you might need to practice a bit in terms of like follow the step by step from the noise reduction stage. Yeah. Yeah. Because,
actually, I followed everything to the T from at least from my understanding lah. But
yeah, because because this process that I've done is like it's like almost foolproof to get you the best results already. So if the steps, I mean the issue shouldn't be the steps, but more so with the application or like maybe like the noise reduction. You use something that was that contained some other noise other than background noise or something. Most likely it should be there. Yeah. Otherwise, otherwise the compressor and the EQ, both of them are just, they are programs. It shouldn't, if everyone applies the same effect to the same product, it should all sound the same, right? Yeah.
Okay. Noted. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. So okay. Right. So I think I think the EQ part should be quite straightforward. Again, EQ is quite an advanced tool. There's actually a lot more to it than just what I've taught you. But for the purposes of podcasts, I don't think you need to know that much because I don't think you'll be using it that much anyway. So I'll just cover it up to there lah. Right. So the next step. So after EQ, what I like to do is sort of like more of like additional treatment, additional polish, just to give the sound, just to give my dialogue a little bit of pop and additional pop, a little bit of additional warmth to the sound. So very simply, what kind of effects I like to do to achieve that is through a function called bass boost, bass and treble. Okay. So you want to click on your track and you want to go to effect, and then you go to bass and treble. And it's a very, very straightforward tool. What it does is it boosts the bassier parts of of your dialogue. And the reason why I like to do this is because me personally, I prefer when the dialogue has a lot more warmth to it. And so this helps me to get that. It's just a 2 decibel increase. So it's not very, very big of a difference, but in terms of the polish, it just makes it sound a little bit better. So I'll just let you guys hear what it sounds like before.
Because my kids currently, one's
and then after.
Because my kids currently, one's getting up whenever she wants.
Yeah. So again, not very perceptible, but it just adds a little bit of touch and warmth out there. And then also the final step in my cleaning. So everything that I've mentioned up to now is all just cleaning. We haven't even touched editing yet, like true editing yet. This is all just cleaning and making the audio sound good. Okay. But we are at the final part of the cleaning portion. So the last thing I do is called amplify. And amplification is basically controlling the volume across the entire track. And why I do this is because in podcasts, if you're uploading to platforms like Spotify, there are specific guidance in terms of like what kind of what's it, the volume that you want to be uploading your audio at, so that you'll be able to be heard optimally on Spotify and other platforms like that. And in the industry standard, they basically call it -16 LUFS. It's a audio technical term for the volume. It's -16 LUFS. But to make it easy for you guys, when you want to achieve this, right? For example, once you want to hit that standard, a rough gauge that I use is around, so for example, I will go to the track that I want to apply the effect to. I'll go to effect, go to amplify, and then I'll simply go to -3.5. Yeah. So through multiple rounds of testing, I found that around -3.5 decibels, that is roughly equivalent to -16 LUFS. If you want to be super anal about the LUFS and you want to really hit the digit, you must download external tools to measure the LUFS. One tool is called the the U-lean loudness, used to measure the LUFS directly. So this is how it works.
To wake up at the same time. It doesn't matter
What time?
like what time.
Yeah.
Around the same time, and you check your brain
Every
after the
single
second
day. Yeah. So gonna suffer through it. But I would like to get a really good routine in. Because my kids currently, one's getting up whenever she wants, and the other one's getting up about.
Yeah, so you can see right around, so this track here is around -3.5. It's around -16 LUFS. Okay, so just to recap, in terms of at this stage, this is the last stage of the cleaning process. What I do to make my audio just give it a little bit of more warmth and body, as well as make it ready for processing in terms of the output settings, is just to give it a bass boost, right? I go to the track, I apply a bass and treble effect, right? And then after that, I go to the same track, highlight it, and then I apply an amplify effect where I have the new peak amplitude capped out at -3.5. Okay. So very straightforward, yeah. All right. So now quickly, we just run through a practice session whereby we go through that same thing again. Hold on. Yeah. So now we go through a practice session where all of you apply the same effects, the bass and the amplify effect, to workshop materials 1.2. Okay. Should be quite easy, yeah? Okay. Okay, so now we've done the now we've finished the cleaning part of the editing process. I just want to recap a few things. Just want to recap what we've learned and what we've gone through. So I just want to mention that whatever that I've taught you so far in terms of noise reduction, compression, EQ, and the bass and the amplification, the settings that I've used and whatever that I've put out in the Google Doc, these are guidelines. They are not super strict rules for every situation. To know the best settings for whatever production, whatever your own podcast that you're going to do, you're going to have to play around and experiment. To get the best sounding audio quality lah. But the steps that I've shown you is that hopefully I will show you what you need to get the audio sounding as good as it can be. Okay, so next I just want to say to learn and adapt. You will not always get it right, but you will get better as you go and with more practice and with more time and with more experience. The key here, I think, is to be able to identify and recognize what good audio sounds like or what you are trying to emulate. So this is what I'm thinking of specifically would be like, if you look at productions like say Freakonomics or The Daily or those very, very polished sounding podcasts, I think that should be the quality that you'll be looking for in terms of the audio quality, right? That should be how clean you want your audio to sound. Of course, through this process, I don't think you'll be approaching that level, but I think it will be a lot further than if you were to just blindly stab at editing and trying to clean your audio by yourself without any sense of guidance and direction in terms of what to do or how to get there. Okay. So then once you get more familiar, okay, so this is for the efficiency fanatics out there and for the shortcut fanatics out there, once you get more familiar with using Audacity and all the steps here, you can actually customize and create many shortcuts within Audacity to improve your workflow. So for example, all this that I've just shown you, right? So all the steps here, I actually have my own, so let's see, So I actually have my own chain whereby all I have to do is just press a shortcut and it will apply all the effects that I've taught you so far. So compressor dynamics, EQ, and then the bass and treble, right? So how I do this is through this thing called macros, through tools, and then macros, and then creating the macro chain. Okay. So this is how I do it. This is what I use to save a lot of time. Of course, you will recognize that there is no noise reduction in there. Reason being that noise reduction, you have to be very on the ball when you do it. So I do that first before I apply this. And then I don't have to amplify there because amplify is just simple one step. So I'll just do it right at the end just to make sure that it's done properly. Because I don't think I can, how to say, like, I don't think, Okay, so these are just some ways to quicken the process after you get a little bit more familiar. Of course, other stuff that you can do is to customize your own shortcuts. And I would suggest and recommend everyone to try this out yourself, or to at least get familiar with what the shortcuts are in Audacity or in whatever editing software that you're using. So in Audacity, you go to Edit, you go to Preferences, and then you go to, where is it? Keyboard, yeah. Keyboard, and then you can customize all the functions and all the shortcuts that you're going to be using, right? So for example, the ones that I've taught you guys so far. So for noise reduction, I have the Shift N. For compression, I don't have one for compression because I use it as part of the chain, but for bass and treble, what I use is Shift B. Then for amplify, I used Shift A and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is just simple little tips and tricks here to help improve the editing process, make it easier for everyone. Okay. All right. So now that we're done cleaning, we're ready to begin editing. Okay. So we're only we've only done an hour and 50 minutes into this workshop where we haven't even touched on editing yet. Okay, but the reason why I emphasize so much on the cleaning is because it's very, very, very important. And I think for newcomers, it's very, very easy to get it wrong. So I just want to make sure that all you guys learn the basics well and make sure you can get it right for this skip competition. Okay, so for editing, the first thing I want to teach you guys is called cutting. Okay, so very simply, cutting is just used to trim portions of the track that we do not want to keep in the final output. So this can be things like dead air. This can be things like your ums and ahs. This can be things like fillers, extra recordings, etc., etc. Very simply, how to use the cut function in Audacity is to highlight the portion that you want to cut, and then there are actually numerous ways that you can do this. So one way is you can just press Control X, which is the basic cut function in, I think, almost any computing software. Control X, it'll cut, right? But if you don't want to use Control X, you can use Control K or delete, the delete button on your keyboard, or you can just use the delete button itself. Okay, so the only difference is that Control X allows you to cut and paste. So for example, if I don't want this chunk of audio to be here, I want it to be somewhere else, I can just cut, I can just paste somewhere else, right? But then I can't do that with the delete function. Or can I actually? I don't know. Okay, but anyway, yeah, so that's the difference between two, but essentially that's how you cut Control X. Okay, the button for the actual toolbar button is up here. But again, if you're going to be editing long stretches of audio, please get familiar with the shortcut. I don't expect you to, for every and ah, just highlight, cut, highlight, cut. It's very, very tedious. So please just learn the shortcut. It's much, much more efficient that way. Okay, so so for example, on an actual podcast track, right, where you would want to apply a cut is somewhere like this. So for example, these two tracks, right, these are from a episode recording for a parenting podcast that I do with Mediacorp. It's called Hey Mama with Sophie Gollifer, right? So these are the raw files, right? And what I've shown you in terms of the cleaning is the actual process that I did for this episode specifically, right? So where would I want to cut and what would I want to remove from the final audio? So everything here, so I would say that, so first thing that I like to do is I want to identify a start point for where I want my actual audio to begin, right? So in this case, would be somewhere around.
Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Hey Mama.
Right. So this is where Sophie actually does her episode introduction. And then everything before that is just chitter chatter, just pleasantries, just small talk between Sophie and the guest.
Do it
Every
after the
single
second day.
Yeah. So gonna suffer.
I don't want to keep that in. I don't want to start with that in the episode. So very simply, what I can do is just highlight both tracks, right? And then just cut. Okay, such that it starts from.
Hello, mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Hey Mama podcast.
Okay, so that's a very straightforward application of cut. But of course, where else would you want to apply the cut function? Okay, so something else, so something other than dead air like that could be like breath noises, right? So for example, maybe I don't want to start with this little click and breathe sound here. And I want to just start with
hello, mamas.
So I can just simply take both tracks and I just cut. Okay. Okay, so let's see. right? So then, but then other than that, where else you would want to apply would be like your ums and ahs and stuff like that. So like,
Parenting with you guys. So much
so for example, there's a here, right? So I can just quickly remove this.
talk about all things parenting with you guys. So much so that it's been 9 episodes.
So maybe there's the breath here, the breath here, consecutive breaths here is a little bit too much. So maybe what I'll do is just cut the additional breath.
With you guys. So much so that it's been 9 episodes. They have flown.
Yeah. So these are just different situations where you would want to apply the cut function. Okay. So but some things to note with the cut as well is that after you've made every cut, it is very important, very, very important to keep playing back the audio or to play back the part that you applied the cut function to, just to make sure that you've done it correctly. So, and what do I mean by done it correctly, right? This means that the cut is smooth and the edit is, the cut is smooth and that you can barely notice it. So there shouldn't be any sudden pops, there shouldn't be any awkward disruptions to the flow or the dialogue. And a quick tip or quick pro hack or whatever you want to call it to make this easier is that to always try and cut at the ends or the tails and not to cut in the middle of an empty section. So for example, over here, right? So this is remember this is the breath that I wanted to remove. What will happen if I just remove this breath specifically?
So much so that it's been 9.
Can you hear that? There's that sudden pop there, not very clean, right? Yes, yes, I think we should take a break in a bit. Okay, I'll just go through this cut, then after that we can go for a break, okay? Right, so it's very important. When you cut, make sure you cut cleanly and don't anyhow cut because you can leave sudden pops, which is not very nice to listen to, okay?
So that it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a very poorly done one. If I cut it at the ends here, so at the start of the new one, end of the previous one, and then...
So that it's been 9.
Yeah, so it's much more cleaner cut. Okay, so then as well, I would say that in the editing process or in the cutting process, in terms of where to cut, there are no hard and fast rules. Of course, you could say that, some people might say, oh, remove every and ah, but then if you do that, there's the chance that your dialogue might sound very robotic. So some people like to keep some of the ums and ahs in to make it sound a bit more natural and realistic. I would say that a lot of times cutting involves a lot of judgment. So it's up to you to decide what portions you want to cut, what portions you want to leave in. I'm here just to tell you that if you want to cut cleanly, don't make it very obvious to the listener. Okay, so, and as well, one last thing regarding cutting. So if you're working with multiple tracks, so for example, if you have a guest and you're doing an interview and then you come out and then when you're editing, it comes out like this, right? You have 2 tracks, right? When you cut, always cut both tracks, okay? Very, very, very important, okay? If you just cut one, your entire track is out of sync already. So you must remember to cut both at the same time. All right. Okay. Okay. So with that being said, we'll go through a practice session and then after that we'll take a bit of a break as well. So the practice is very simple. What I want you guys to do is to trim out the parts before Sophie starts, so before the episode starts proper, as well as the part here, which is from 7:10 to 8:48. Oh, no. Okay. So sorry. So for this practice session, what you guys want to do is to cut out the dead air before the episode starts properly. And then through this section of audio here, let me see, around 7:10 to around 8:48. Yeah, 7:10 to around here. So let's just say 7:10 to around 8:10 for about that minute. to go through and cut through any parts that you think shouldn't be kept inside the final audio lah. So this will be your ums, your ahs, your dead airs and stuff like that. So I'll just quickly run through a little bit of example of what I would cut out.
Us what your situation was 2019.
Okay. Okay, I think I have to first explain that I did an article on corporate burnout. So at that time.
So for example, here, the guest
was like back then in 2019.
Okay.
So if the guest has a sort of awkward, she responded quite awkwardly, right? So this is an example of an area where it's very straightforward. You want to just cut that out. So
what your situation was like back then in 2019.
Okay, I think I have to first explain.
And again, she repeats it twice, so just cut that out.
Was like back then in 2019.
I think I have to first
Okay, so go through the practice, trim out the part at the front, and then go through this section of audio from 7:10 to around 8:10, just to cut through. Essentially, it's just the guest response here, this chunk of response here towards the end of workshop materials 1.2. Okay, just go through this part, listen through, and then just practice cutting out portions where you think you should be cut. And practice also the habit of like listening back after you've cut, listen through, make sure that it's clean, make sure there are no sudden pops, make sure that you didn't cut in between a breath, so on and so forth. Right, so, okay, everyone go for practice, and then same time you can go for your break. Let's come back at around 12:10, 12:10, okay, 12:10, 12:15, yeah, okay. Okay, so everyone, go for your practice. Go for your break. Is the voice. Always prioritize the voice. Make sure if you have music in the background, always make sure the voice comes through clear. A surefire way to leave a bad impression, right, or through your podcast, is if the mix is not handled well, particularly through the intro, and the music overcrowds the voice, overcompetes with the voice, such that you can barely hear anything. Everything sounds like a giant jumbled mess. Doesn't sound good. Okay, so if you're mixing and if you're confused or unclear as to whether this is too loud or too soft, the guiding principle is always the voice. Does the music overcrowd the voice? If it sounds like it's competing, if it sounds like if you're listening back to the person having the conversation, if you're having a hard time following because of the music, then change the music or lower the volume or remove the music, right? That should always be the guiding principle. Okay, so let's go through the practice for music beds and mixing. Okay. So you'll be loading in the files titled Workshop Materials 5.1 and 5.2. Okay. So then after you've loaded them in, you can mute and collapse the other tracks because you'll be only working on 5.1 and 5.2. And then you'll be following the same steps that I've just done while explaining the parts on incorporating music and mixing. So basically, at the beginning, you'll be wanting to identify an entry point where you can start the envelope. And then after that, you'll be lining up and rearranging your VO track accordingly. And then after that, you'll be identifying and cutting and fading out appropriately after you've found the exit point. Okay, so so just spend a couple of minutes practicing on this, getting familiar with this. Okay, and with that, we have come just about the end of this workshop. Wow, just about 3 hours. I never even rehearsed this workshop before, but soon. Okay, so anyway, just one last thing in terms of editing. So for example, you've done all your edit already, you make everything clean already, everything nice and pretty already. You're ready to export this to upload as your episode or whatever. So you want to go through exporting, right? And I know I mentioned a little bit earlier that exporting, there are certain standards, certain specifications. So just remember, in terms of the podcasting space, the industry standard for the volume is -16 LUFS or a peak amplitude of minus 3.5 dBs. Again, the amplitude, very easy to check. You can just click on your track, go to amplitude, amplify, and then you can see, right, what's the, for example, here it says 5.7. So that means my room to the cap is 5.7, but what you want it to be is minus 3.5, which you can easily adjust here. Okay. So that's just a rough and easy guide for the, in terms of the audio, the volume specifics. But then in terms of the file, when you export, what you want to do is export in MP3, 192 kbps and MP3. Okay. Remember 192 kbps, MP3. If you export your file and it's like 500 MB for like a 30-minute episode, guarantee is because your file is like a WAV or a FLAC or something. Okay, so 192 and MP3. And after that, and aside from that, I think that's about it. Thank you everyone for taking the time, 3 hours out of your Sunday to go through this workshop. My voice is almost dead already, so please have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. It was a very insightful workshop, very useful. I picked up some tips myself as I am also making a podcast right now. So I think it's really useful. I think with all the questions and interaction that was happening also, I believe that the attendees over here also did benefit out of it, you know, because as much as I have, you know, I learned Audacity myself a few years ago, but until now, I still cannot grasp it. So there were a lot of good tips out there over the past 3 hours. It was worth it, Danny. I hope you guys feel the same. So thank you so much to, of course, Danny and all of you for attending with us for the past 3 hours. I hope we will help you a lot through the journey of your podcasting. Now, so coming right up also, this coming week, we have a few more workshops that's happening. We have gone through the very introductory workshops in the past couple of weeks. We are now in a more intermediate segment of our pod lab. And then we're also moving into the higher levels of content creation. So, you know, a lot of it is the sound editing, it's not editing, sound mixing and sound design part of it, as well as if you want to think further of how you're going to monetize your podcast, is also coming up. But the one that is going to come up in just 2 days, Tuesday evening, is with Pavan Srinath from IVM Podcast. IVM Podcast is a very large network of podcasters in India. Okay, so we have invited them down to talk about how do you actually do interviews. I understand that quite a lot of you are actually thinking of doing interview style or format of your podcast. So it's not just one person talking, you know, you'll be having to actually structure your whole podcast around what your guest says. So how can you do that? He's going to be covering a little bit of that also. So if you're still interested, you can go to asiapodcastfestival.com, go and check out the other upcoming workshops. Okay. And we also have a Telegram group set up. So if you have not joined us, please go ahead and join us over there. I will leave the link in the chat group later. Okay, if you're interested, join us. There's going to be discussions. Some of it is reminders. We also have some of the speakers who have joined us previously and who are going to join us later as well, joining the Telegram group. So if you have any questions along the way or so after that, you can also join. You can also ask them inside the group. So thank you so much. And before you go, most of you might be very familiar with this, but I will need your help to please fill up the evaluation form, especially if you are Singaporean or Singaporean PR, because you might be eligible for E2I claims. And in order to claim, you would have to fill up the evaluation form, okay, for every session that you come for. If you're non-Singaporean and this doesn't apply to you, please use the link that's on the right. I have received, emails, inquiries about how to go about the E2I claims. I saw them. I'll be getting back to you, okay, along the course of the next few days. So thank you so much. I'm going to leave this here for the next few minutes. And once you guys are done, that's it. Go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I think Danny will be staying back for a bit more. So if you have any last questions, you might want to catch him. If not, I'll see you the next time. Thank you, everyone. Bye, guys.
Okay, that's it. We'll be ending the session then. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.